discussion was triggered by a conversation on the Cathodic Protection Network, which is a public forum where engineers and professionals exchange ideas and challenge each other's understanding. A question was raised about whether the conductivity of the fluid inside a pipeline has any effect on the external cathodic protection system. At first, the general response was that it does not, that internal and external conditions are completely separate, and that only factors like temperature have any influence. However, I disagree with that conclusion. The idea that internal conductivity plays no role comes from a simplified view of the system. In reality, electrical energy does not recognise boundaries such as inside and outside. It moves according to the available conductive paths, always flowing from higher potential to lower potential. This behaviour is governed by fundamental principles such as Ohm's law and Kirchhoff's laws, which apply to the entire system, not just isolated parts of it. To properly understand this, you must look at the pipeline as a complete electrical network. This includes the metal structure, the coating, the surrounding soil, and the internal fluid. All of these elements contribute to the overall behaviour of the system. When viewed in this way, it becomes clear that internal conductivity can influence external conditions because they are connected through the same electrical pathways. One of the biggest problems in corrosion control industry today is the way measurement is understood and applied. Techniques like close interval potential survey, CIPS, or DCVG are widely used and heavily relied on. However, they are often oversold, producing large volumes of data, complex graphs and interpretations based on conflicting or weak theoretical foundations. In many cases, these results are not as reliable as they are presented to be. A key misunderstanding relies on the concept that a potential. In practice, you cannot measure a potential directly. You can only measure a potential difference, which is a voltage. This distinction is critical, yet it is often overlooked. Without a clear and reliable reference point, the measurements taken in the field can become inconsistent and misleading. This is further complicated by the assumption that there is no driving force connecting internal and external environments. Some argue that since cathodic protection involves a potential difference between the structure and an external anode, the internal fluid has no role. But this ignores the fact that the system as a whole contains multiple conductive paths, and these paths interact in ways that are not always obvious unless properly analysed. These limitations in understanding are why existing survey methods often fail to provide clear answers. Data can be difficult to interpret, and even advanced inspection tools may struggle to accurately locate defects. The issue is not just the tools themselves, but the way the underlying science is applied. This is the problem that led to the development of the Alexander cell. Its purpose is to establish a true and stable reference for measurement, removing distortions such as the IR drop and allowing accurate data to be collected. With a reliable reference, it becomes possible to analyse measurements correctly, both in the field and using computer systems. This work is not just theoretical. It can be tested and verified using simple equipment such as a multimeter, and by building practical models, real data can be gathered and compared with established scientific laws rather than relying on assumptions or accepted industry practices. Ultimately, this is more than common corrosion control. It is about how we measure and understand physical systems. If the measurements are flawed, then the conclusions drawn from them will also be flawed. By revisiting fundamentals and applying them correctly, it becomes possible to gain a clearer and more accurate understanding of what is actually happening. This is only the beginning of a wider exploration into pipeline corrosion, measurement science, and the interaction between internal and external environments. By approaching the subject with a combination of practical experience and fundamental science, we can begin to move beyond uncertainty and towards reliable and verifiable understanding. To follow this, join our Patreon groups and also subscribe and thumbs up to these series of YouTube videos. Thank you very much for your attention.